Hi guys, welcome back to The Spear. Today I'm here with Miss Rossi-Potter.
Hey guys.
An old teacher of mine. Just from last semester.
Yeah.
But we're going to be talking about the civil rights movement and a lot of the stuff that gets glossed over in it. Just because, not because of any teacher's faults or any students really, it's just timing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of important information is lost. And so
and honestly, when you look at the standards for education, mm-hmm. it's only one small standard to cover in high school, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we don't get to spend enough time on the civil rights movement mm-hmm. For our students.
Yeah, I feel like most of U.S. history, at least from what I noticed, it was like so much of it was Revolutionary and Civil War, mm-hmm. and then such a small amount was
present, like 20th century,
yeah, just even
after World War II.
Anything like from the 50s on.
Right.
Like we kind of get to the Cold War, and then it kind of starts to crumble.
You're
and
correct.
People are starting to check out by then because they're like, the semester's almost over.
You know what? I have a different. I see that, but I also, and I talk about this with my colleagues. I see the mm-hmm. kids kind of perk up a little
really?
More.
Oh,
or
grades?
Actually have more questions about what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Because they sort of have heard it more so than they heard about, say, War of 1812 mm-hmm. or something.
And it seems so relevant because like there's still a lot of issues that we're fighting for. Like there's an active Black Lives Matter movement in Charleston still that a lot of people don't know about.
Right.
Another thing they don't.
And the NAACP mm-hmm. is always highly involved in situations where not just African American rights are being taken advantage of, but anyone.
Mm-hmm. So, like, are there any things specifically that you wish you got to talk more about with the civil rights movement? Like things that, like, a lot of people don't know about freedom rides. Was one thing I mm-hmm. mentioned earlier.
Right.
Like, what other events and historical figures are we missing?
A lot.
I'm sure. But like,
students don't know about the freedom rides. I don't think they really understand how much of the civil rights movement there was so much tension throughout our entire country at the time, mm-hmm. and unfortunately. It's just not talked about enough. Like, I know students have heard of Emmett Till. Mm-hmm. I think. Now, not all students have.
No. I guarantee a lot of people won't know who you're talking about.
Right. So, Emmett Till, 14-year-old, living mm-hmm. in Chicago. His mom sent him down south to visit family for 2 weeks during the summer. Yeah. And he will be killed by 2 white men, supposedly for whistling at a white woman.
Yeah.
And he will be found in a river, and the 2 men will not
they'll never
be acquitted for their actions.
Mm-hmm.
And
isn't there an open casket?
Yes. Ugh. So the mom, wanted it out there. He wasn't okay with what happened, but wanted to show the mm-hmm. nation what was really happening.
She knew it would get more attention that way.
Right. And of course in the South, you would think where we live, there'd be more education mm-hmm. about what went on during that time. Especially it shouldn't be hidden. It is part of history. Everyone has been affected by it, no matter mm-hmm. what background you are.
Yeah.
And knowing it will only lead us to be aware of things mm-hmm. and change present day.
Oh, yeah. And, one thing that I always thought was interesting was that a lot of times when you look back at history, it's made to seem like everybody was for equality, and everyone in the 60s, they were all hippies who wanted, that supported Black Lives Matter, and they were all for it. But if that was the case, then it wouldn't have lasted so long.
Right.
And it wouldn't have been so violent.
Correct.
It wasn't just hillbillies that were out against Black people.
No, and I'm not going to mention but if you look at the present day news that's going on, there's some issues there that occurred back in the 60s that are mm-hmm. rising up to call out some leaders, such as the governor of Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
So that sort of shows you what the mentality of some people what it was back then. I wasn't alive then.
Yeah.
Just like, I was born in 1971. But even me, it's hard for me to comprehend how people felt that way.
Yeah.
How could they not know what they were thinking was wrong? And I think it's just because we weren't brought up during that time.
Yeah, but my parents, they don't listen to this, so they won't know that I'm exposing them. But they well, not really my mom, but my dad was born in the 40s.
Right, I remember you saying he's a little older.
So but he grew up very poor, and which helped him, I think, have a good, because both my parents, thank God they're not racist. Like I think about race all the time. Of course.
And I was thinking about the same thing just the other day, how my family was not wealthy either. So I hung out with kids in the neighborhood that were different color. I hung out with African American kids. There was a lot of Puerto Ricans in my town also. And I remember playing with a Puerto Rican girl, which was a little different than what my other cousins were doing that lived in other neighborhoods.
Right.
And then I remember being really good friends with an African American girl, and she lived in the projects just up the street from my house, and I played with her, and I really benefited from that.
Yeah.
I just know and learn just they're equals. Everyone's equal. And I think that's what kind of shaped my viewpoints in being such an advocate for equality and rights of all people, no matter what.
And no kid is automatically I know that expression has probably been beaten to the ground, but it's like no one's born racist or bigoted.
Exactly.
It's all taught. It's all like, oh, you grew up in an area that was like everyone was the same race as you.
Right.
Whether that is white or black or Hispanic.
Right. Right.
But I don't know.
It all has to do with education.
Yeah.
And how you're brought up.
Yeah, because a teacher can't choose how their students are brought up. But do you think if we had more time to really focus on these issues, that there would be change? What do you think would change?
Yes. Oh gosh. So
I know that's a big.
I just think there would be a lot more acceptance of others. I don't really see, and of course I'm in my little area, Wando High School, but I don't really see the people being unaccepting of others because of their backgrounds or ethnicity.
Yeah.
But it always could be better. And I think if that's what I try to do in my classroom, especially talking about the civil rights movement. I just want people to be aware and understand how we've gone forward and what people needed to do to obtain rights. And that's so clear throughout all of history for all minority groups, not just African Americans, but women also.
Women, we had the Japanese internment camps.
Yes.
Which is also glossed over, which is a whole other issue.
That
could have its own thing.
I could teach that for an entire week or more, of course. And maybe we should, look into that, have more choices in the social studies department where students could take, women's studies and learn about women in history or just social issues and focus on that. I think that would really benefit a lot of kids.
Oh, yeah, because there is... And a lot of people want to know. I've never met anyone who's like, oh, I don't care about the civil rights movement. Right. Everyone's really into it, and they all are really interested in it, or maybe apathetic. But I don't know. Most people I know are actually interested in it, despite if they're what kind of classes they're in. Because I have friends from everywhere, but it's just a lot of them. There's such a lack of information. Even I don't feel like I have such a great grip on what happened. Recently, not really recently, last year I read Dick Gregory's book, and that really helped, and I didn't know half of that stuff until then. I didn't know the major cities everything happened in.
Okay.
I didn't know any of the events, and it was so sad.
It is sad. I don't know what to say.
And it was and I'm someone who really values education.
Right.
And learning.
Yeah. I don't know what to say.
But I know.
It's a disservice But luckily, and what do we do for those people that don't value being educated in that? Like, we can't force them to learn it.
No.
But, and some people still aren't aware. Like, we, of course, we know the big names. You know, we know Malcolm X, we know Martin Luther King Jr., but there were so many other people that had to be involved to also make the difference. And we talk about Brown versus Board of Education. We also had a family of the last name of Brown in Charleston.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned it in class, that also was suing the school district for the segregation of schools. But Brown versus Board from Topeka, Kansas, you know, came about as the one the Supreme Court was going to look at and made the change concerning. But this was, that wasn't, I think that happened, guys, you know, teach the students, but there were those many other stories just like that one
there was
going throughout the country and wanting to change things.
Oh, yeah.
But I think most of my kids know the basics.
They do, yeah.
Thankfully, being interested in it, I'm not sure. I mean, I know you are and others, but there's some like, okay, this happened, next.
Yeah, that's a whole other issue. That's so sad to me because you don't lose anything from trying to learn about such an... Because it's not like a battle in the 1800s. Like, it's important to know that, sure.
Right.
But it's not going to directly affect our politics today.
Right.
While the civil rights movement is still around right now.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Whether it's with different groups, but also, like, same ones. It's just cycling through.
It's just the fabric of our society, and we should know where our country came from, what had to occur for changes to understand where we are today, and to hopefully take a step further where we are right now and continue that fight for equality, no matter who you are.
And I think we are going forward.
I do too.
You know, it's always at a little slow pace.
It is slow. I mean, it definitely takes time for change. I mean, you have to educate people. You have to get people to understand what messages you're trying to put out there. You don't want to scare anyone. You don't want to get people angry, because you do want change to happen. So that's kind of part of trying to create an organization that can take that push. And that's
then
with
politics
anything.
come into it, and that makes it messier. But, like, things are going up. And talking about it like this, even for only 13 minutes now, it's, you know, it's gonna help.
Yeah, I would just suggest for kids to research like you did. Read books that engage, and ask your teachers questions. Engage your friends, engage your parents in conversations, especially if they lived through it.
Oh, yeah. And it doesn't just have to be like, and I'm going to speak to whoever's listening, but it doesn't just have to be like a history. If you don't like reading nonfiction, it doesn't just have to be that. There's tons of fiction books. Some are probably even funny that have a really good message underneath. Like, Dick Gregory's a comedian. So, like, there were moments in there where it was hilarious, but it was horrifying.
Right.
But, like, there's so many different books.
Like, just, you know, The Hate U Give.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I just actually watched that movie this past weekend. I read the book. Oh, yeah. But did you?
No, I didn't.
Have you read it?
No, I haven't.
No?
I need to read it.
Yes,
I've been planning on it. And then, that movie's coming out. What's it called? If Beale Street Could Talk? If Something Street Could Talk.
Oh, yeah. Beale Street.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's Beale Street. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's going to be really good.
Yeah, definitely. But The Hate U Give, you know, is kind of that present day struggle with dealing with police brutality and race and just, life in general for groups and areas. It's amazing. Yeah. And she's coming out with another book. I'm not sure what that one's about. Yeah, her name's Angie Thomas. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all the time we have.
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. Go check out the tribaltribune.org for any news stories. And we're also going to have sections on Black History Month and the Civil Rights Movement in the paper.